Hello and welcome to Miss Crafts-A-Lot's Lair. I am Barbie Giannoni and I am here today to give you an idea of the tools that you will need if you are a beginning knitter. First off, it's really simply what's knitting without the needles. Well, there are three different kinds of needles that I would like to show you today. The first one are the most commonly thought of needles when people say, I knit. These are the straight needles, and they have a little tip at the end to keep your yarn from falling off the end, and of course the kneaded needle at the end. Now of course these come all in different sizes. These are size 8, all different sizes, so that is going to be a difference. How to pick the perfect size needle is going to be another video that I do later here. But this is just an overview quick. These are your straight needles. The other needles that they have are the double pointed needles. And you'll see these being referred to in patterns as DPN or DPNS. So these guys have the knitting at the needle end at both sides, and they're generally made or used for making smaller projects, and projects worked in what they call the round, which is you keep going around and around and around, as it would probably kind of sound like. These I find personally to be kind of hard to work with. So, and as you can tell if you've checked out my patterns on Ravelry, I kind of tend to try to avoid these boogers. My go-to are the circular knitting needles. Now these, as you can tell, are on a nice wire, so it's going to hold all of your work on the needle if you're working on something large. If you're working on something small, it'll kind of fold around. And these are my go-to, especially when I'm making socks, because I can do 2 socks at the same time and just turn them around, work one side. That'll be something I'll show you on another video as well. But my go-to is definitely the circular needles. Another thing you'll need is if you're going to be working a cable or anything where you're going to have to hold needles, or hold stitches rather, off, you're going to need cable needles. Now all of these do the same thing. They hold the stitches that you're not using. Now, other people I have seen use the double pointed needles for this as well. So then that way you can stash those stitches away until you need them next. A lot of cables, it's only a couple of stitches that you need to hold on. This in the middle is my favorite go-to cable needle. And these this one comes in a bigger size. So those are the cable needles. So if you're using the straight edge needles, or if you're using the straight knitting needles, or you are using a lot of stitches on your cable needle, you are going to need these. Now these go on the end of your needle. Some call them tip protectors, others call them stitch keepers. There's a bunch of different names for these. Now, they just slide right onto the end of the needle, as so. And another thing you'll need, not always, but if you're working in a, I find myself using these if I'm using a repeating pattern, because you'll want to make sure that you're keeping with the repeating pattern, especially if you have a pattern that has, work here, from this symbol to this symbol so many times. You're going to need a way to mark where your repeats are. Now these are special, well, not special, but these are labeled as being the knitting stitch markers, but I also kind of tend to like to use the crochet, what they call crochet in some cases, stitch markers. These snap together and unsnap, so you can move them between crochet stitches, which won't open or won't slide over. These you just kind of slide along the hook when you're using them. And that'll be something that I can show you in another video as well. This is just kind of an overview of what you might need in order to finish a project. Another thing is a gauger. Never underestimate the power of a gauge swatch. Again, in another video I will show you how to do the gauging, but these are two different kinds of gauging needles, and these are going to show you the gauge, so that you've got the measurements on the side. Also, these holes in your knitting gauge help you to figure out what size those pesky double-pointed needles are, because if you're like me, I have a bag full of them, and they're all together and they're all intermixed and such. So just to show you quick, you can figure out what size your needle is by just going ahead and putting it in here. If it doesn't go through, like this won't, then it's too small. So the next size up, and you have a 6. So these would be size 6 knitting needles. And then when you're all done with your project and you are trying to hide what I call the tails, or just finishing off weaving the tails into the knitting project, so then that way you're finishing it up and ready to use, you're going to need your yarn needle. So it's got a bigger eye here to thread yarn through. And I have probably an overabundance of these, but they are pesky and they try to run away from me quite often. So, and finally, I know we've gotten to the finishing part, the yarn needle, but I have a surprise one that I found out is a very helpful tool to have around for your knitting, and that is a crochet hook. This one is a size H. And you're probably going, why do you need a crochet hook when you're knitting? Let me tell you. This is the best way to pick up those inevitable dropped stitches. Find where it ends, go right on up. Perfect way to fix your dropped stitch. As I said before, this is not going to be my only knitting video. I'm going to be showing you videos on how to use probably all of these all of these tools. But this is just an overview quick as to what you may need. And if you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. I am going to be doing more knitting videos in the near future here. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you found it informative. And until next time.